I moved into my apartment in Seattle last March. Ground floor, 1 bedroom, decent rent for the neighborhood. The kind of place where you keep to yourself and nobody asks questions. The tenant above me was quiet. Too quiet, actually. For the first 2 months, I never heard a single footstep. No TV, no music, no furniture being moved. Nothing. I figured they worked nights. Or maybe the building just had good insulation. Then the pacing started. It began around 3 a.m. on a Thursday. Slow, deliberate footsteps, back and forth, back and forth. Always the same path, from what I assumed was their bedroom to their kitchen. 20 steps one direction, 20 steps back, over and over. For hours, I tried to ignore it, put in earplugs, turned on a fan for white noise, but I could still feel it through the ceiling. That rhythmic vibration, like a heartbeat that wouldn't stop. By 6 a.m., it finally stopped. I didn't think much of it. Insomnia is common. Maybe they were stressed about work. But it happened again the next night. And the night after that. After a week of this, I was exhausted. I decided to leave a polite note on their door. I climbed the stairs to the second floor and found apartment 2B. My apartment was directly below. I knocked first. No answer. I slipped the note under the door. "Hey neighbor, I'm in 1B below you. Would you mind keeping it down after midnight? The pacing is keeping me up. Thanks." That night, the pacing stopped. I finally got a full night's sleep. But the next evening, I found a note slipped under my door. It was written in shaky handwriting, like someone had been trembling while they wrote it. "There is no one living in 2B. Building records show it's been vacant for 8 months. Please stop leaving notes." Signed by the building manager. I stood there holding that note, my hands going cold. I'd heard those footsteps for a week. I'd felt them through my ceiling. They were real. I went back upstairs and tried the door to 2B. Locked. But through the gap at the bottom of the door, I could see something that made my throat tighten. Dust. Thick, undisturbed dust covering the floor just inside the entrance. No footprints. No signs anyone had been inside in months. I called the building manager. He came up with keys, clearly annoyed. "I told you," he said. "Nobody's been in here since the last tenant moved out." He opened the door. The apartment was completely empty. No furniture, no belongings, just bare walls and that thick layer of dust covering everything. But there was something else. In the center of the main room, the dust had been disturbed. Not by footprints, by a path. A worn path in the dust. 20 steps from the bedroom area to the kitchen area. 20 steps back, over and over, like someone or something had been pacing there for months. The manager went pale. He locked the door and told me he'd look into it. That night, I stayed at a friend's place. But at 3 a.m., my friend shook me awake. "Dude, your phone keeps buzzing." I checked it. 15 missed calls. All from my apartment's landline. The landline I'd never set up. That wasn't even connected to a phone. I listened to the voicemail. It was breathing. Slow, labored breathing. And in the background, I could hear it. Footsteps. 20 steps one direction. 20 steps back. I broke my lease the next week. Lost my deposit. Didn't care. But here's the thing that still keeps me up at night. Before I moved out, I did some research on the building. 8 months ago, the tenant in 2B died. A woman in her 70s. She had dementia. According to the police report, she'd been dead for 3 days before anyone found her. The report mentioned something else. In her final months, neighbors complained about her pacing at night. She'd gotten confused, they said. Couldn't sleep. Would just walk back and forth for hours. From her bedroom to her kitchen. 20 steps each way. I used to work night security at a self-storage facility outside Portland. 3 nights a week, midnight to 8 a.m. Just me and 400 units of other people's forgotten belongings. The job was simple. Walk the property every 2 hours, check the gates, make sure nobody was breaking in. The rest of the time, I'd sit in the office watching security feeds and scrolling my phone. Paid well for what it was. And honestly, the solitude didn't bother me. I'm not someone who needs constant stimulation. That changed on a Tuesday in November. Around 2 a.m. during my first patrol, I noticed Unit 47 was slightly ajar. Not wide open, just enough that the padlock hung loose on the latch instead of being secured through it. I pulled out my flashlight and approached carefully. Company policy was clear: never open a unit yourself. Call the renter, document it, move on. But something made me pause. The gap was maybe 3 inches, just wide enough to see inside. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The beam of my flashlight caught something unexpected: a sleeping bag, spread out on the concrete floor, and next to it a camping lantern, still warm when I held my hand near the metal. Someone had been inside. Recently. My stomach tightened. I radioed dispatch, reported it, and they told me what I already knew: secure it and move on. We'll contact the renter in the morning. I clicked the padlock shut and continued my rounds. But I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. The second patrol at 4 a.m. felt different. The facility was too quiet. Even the usual sounds, the hum of the security lights, the distant highway traffic, seemed muffled, like the air itself had thickened. When I reached the back row of units, I noticed something that made my breath catch. Unit 47's padlock was open again. Not just loose this time, completely removed, sitting on the ground. The door was closed, but unlocked. I stood there for a long moment, flashlight beam fixed on that door, my hand hovering over my radio. Every instinct screamed at me to call it in and wait for backup. But backup was 20 minutes away, and something about the situation felt urgent. I pulled the door up slowly. The sleeping bag was gone. The lantern was gone. But now there were footprints, muddy, barefoot, leading from the unit directly toward the office, toward where I'd been sitting for the last 2 hours. I followed those prints with my flashlight, my pulse hammering in my ears. They tracked across the asphalt, past Unit 31, past the dumpsters, right up to the office window. The same window I'd been sitting in front of. The same window where, if someone had been standing outside in the dark, they would have had a perfect view of me. For hours, I spun around, scanning the rows of units, the shadows between the overhead lights. Nothing moved, but then I heard it, a faint metallic sound, like a rolling door being pulled down. Somewhere in the maze of units behind me, I keyed my radio. Dispatch, I need police at Riverside storage. Possible intruder on property. The response crackled back. Copy. ETA 15 minutes. 15 minutes felt like 15 hours. I backed toward the office, keeping my flashlight sweeping across the facility. The sound came again, closer this time. A rolling door, then another, then another. Someone was opening units, methodically, one after another, and they were moving toward me. I locked myself in the office and watched the security feeds. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the mouse. Camera 7 showed the back row. Empty. Camera 4 showed the middle section. Nothing. Camera 2 showed the front gate area. And there, standing just outside the frame, barely visible in the edge of the light, was a figure. Barefoot, wearing what looked like dark, filthy clothes. Completely still. Just standing there, staring at the camera, staring at me. I switched to camera 3. The figure was there too. Closer now. Camera 5. Even closer. They weren't walking between cameras. They were just appearing in each frame, getting closer to the office with every click. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I know you saw me. The police arrived 12 minutes later. They searched the entire facility. Found nothing. No footprints. No sleeping bag. No evidence anyone had been there. But when they checked Unit 47, they found something I hadn't mentioned, because I hadn't seen it, scratched into the concrete wall in letters 2 feet tall. Thank you for letting me in. I quit the next day. Didn't even go back for my final paycheck. But sometimes, late at night, I still get texts from that unknown number. They never say anything, just a photo of me sitting in that office, taken from outside the window, with a timestamp from last week. My daughter Emma turned 4 last September. Around that time, she started talking about her friend, First, my wife and I thought it was sweet. Imaginary friends are normal at that age. A sign of creativity. Emma would set an extra place at the dinner table. She'd talk to empty corners of her room. She'd giggle at jokes only she could hear. We encouraged it, played along. That was our mistake. The first real warning came in October. I was putting Emma to bed when she looked past me toward her closet and said, "He wants to know why you're always so tired." I froze. "What?" "My friend. He says you look tired. He wants to help you sleep better." A chill ran down my spine. I was tired. I'd been working long hours, barely sleeping, but I'd never mentioned it around Emma. "What's your friend's name?" I asked carefully. She smiled. "He says you already know." After that, things escalated quickly. Emma started waking up at exactly 3:17 a.m. every night. Not crying, not scared, just awake. I'd find her standing in the hallway, facing the wall, completely still. "Emma, what are you doing?" "Listening. He's telling me things." "What things?" She turned to me with that same innocent smile. "Secrets. About you and Mommy." My wife found the drawings in November. Emma had filled an entire sketchbook with them. Page after page of the same figure. A tall, thin man with no face. Just a blank oval where his head should be. Standing in doorways. Standing beside beds. Standing in the corner of Emma's room. Always the same pose. Arms at his sides. Perfectly still. At the bottom of each drawing, in Emma's careful preschool handwriting, "My friend watches us sleep." We took Emma to a child psychologist. She said it was normal. Vivid imagination. Maybe she'd seen something scary on TV. But Emma didn't watch scary things. We were careful about that. The psychologist suggested we gently discourage the imaginary friend. Stop playing along. Redirect her attention. We tried. That's when things got worse. Emma stopped eating. She'd sit at the table, staring at that empty chair we used to set for her friend. "He's mad at you," she'd whisper. "He says you're being mean." At night, we'd hear her talking in her room. But it wasn't the one-sided conversation of a child playing pretend. It was back and forth, like someone was responding. And the voice responding wasn't Emma's. It was deeper, older, male. I set up a baby monitor in her room. Not the video kind, just audio. That night, I listened from our bedroom. At 3:17 a.m., I heard Emma's door creak open. Then footsteps. Small ones, Emma's. Then another set of footsteps. Heavier, slower, following her. I ran to her room. Emma was standing in the hallway again, facing the wall, alone. But on the baby monitor, I could still hear those heavy footsteps, walking back and forth behind her, getting closer to the monitor, getting closer to me. We moved out of that house 2 weeks ago. Didn't tell Emma why, just packed up and left. She hasn't mentioned her friend since. But last night, I was unpacking boxes in our new place when I found something, tucked in the bottom of Emma's toy chest. Another drawing. The same tall, thin figure with no face. But this time, he wasn't alone. He was standing in a doorway, the doorway to our new house, and written at the bottom, in handwriting that definitely wasn't Emma's, "Thank you for the invitation.